Hello everyone, welcome to It's a Nerdy Thing. For today's session, we have with us an author who has written 22 books, Stacy Juba.
Hi.
Stacy. Welcome to this session, Stacy.
Oh, thank you for having me.
How are you doing today?
Good.
So with your permission, Stacy, first I would like to introduce you to our audience.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, so Stacy Juba loves reading and writing novels. She has authored more than 20 books in various genres, including mystery thrillers, children's books, and romance novels like Story Valley series. Her books have made bestsellers list, including Barnes & Noble's bestsellers and multiple Amazon Top 100 lists. Stacy's first novel, Face Off, was originally published when she was only 18 years old. Wow. Since then, she has written more than 3,000 articles and won over a dozen of writing awards, including recognition from the New England Press Association. She is also a winner of the American Cancer Society New England Chapter's Sword of Hope Media Award. After years of working as a reporter and freelance writer, Stacy now concentrates on writing books and helping other authors who are editing an online course, Shortcuts for Writers. Her signature course, Book Editing Blueprint, a step-by-step plan to making your novels publishable, empowers fiction writers to think like an editor so they can save time and money. She is the founder of Glass Slipper Sisters, a group of authors who have published fairy tale and royalty novels. Wow, Stacy, it's an honor to have you on the show with us.
Oh, I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
So are you ready for today's session?
I am.
I am personally super excited because I have so many questions from you. So let's start from the beginning. So how you became a reader?
I just always loved to read. My parents used to take me to the library when I was little. We would take walks to the library because it was in walking distance. And I just loved to read. I love mysteries, especially. I remember reading Bobbsey Twins, Trixie Belden, Nancy Drew, The Hardy Boys, Beverly Cleary books. And I was also very introverted, so I think books were just an escape for me. And they were just always very special to me, so they've always been a big part of my life.
Wow, so any favorite books you have had?
My favorite book in high school was The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton.
Okay.
I just always really loved that book, and I guess identified with Ponyboy, the main character.
Okay.
It was, I really enjoyed the Harry Potter series also. I think that's just amazing, just how J.K. Rowling took this idea and developed it over so many books. And she said so much. I really admire her. Just her imagination, ability to carry that out.
Very good job with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Harry Potter series and Outsiders, yes. So what got you into writing?
I think it was a natural progression from reading. And again, like I was introverted, quiet in school, and writing just became a way for me to express myself, I think. I remember writing my first story when I was about 10. And then in 5th grade, my teacher really encouraged us to write. We did a lot of fiction writing. So I just kind of took that and really ran with it. Like my stories would be really long. And then I started writing mystery stories. When I was at home, I'd write like 50, 60-page stories. And I just kept doing it, you know. I started submitting stories to magazines when I was probably about 14, 15. So I knew from an early age I wanted writing to be a part of my life.
Yes.
So.
Like quite a young age. So basically you started writing at the age of 10, right?
Yeah.
That's quite early. Like I was not even a reader at that point of time, like proper reader, and you were a writer. That's really good. So what inspired you to write your first published novel, Face Off?
Well, I had been really trying to work on teaching myself how to write. I remember my mom used to take me to this bookstore, and they had these books like for adults on improving the craft of writing, and you know, it kind of taught you like how to write description, how to create characters. So, you know, I really worked on that from a young age, and then by the time I was 16, I'd written lots of stories, like short stories, but I had never tried a novel before. And I just got this idea for a novel. I think it was because I was really interested in hockey at that time. It was like right after the Olympics, and I had gotten interested in watching like Team USA, and then that went right into the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I started following that. And then because I love to read, I was looking for books about ice hockey. I was looking for fiction books, and I couldn't find any. All I could find were biographies and autobiographies, and a lot of them were for players like from 10, 15 years before, that players I didn't really know. So I just decided to write my own book, and it was partly for entertainment, for myself, and partly because I had seen in a magazine, I had seen an ad for this competition for teenage writers, and the winner would get a publishing contract with Avon Books, and they held this competition every other year. So I started writing the book, and I figured, well, if I finish this book, I'll send it and enter it in the contest the next time they have it. So I kept working on the book, and I had a best friend who was kind of following it with me. So, like, she would read my pages in study hall, and her enthusiasm kind of kept me going because, she was interested in reading. So I thought it might have a chance in the contest. So, but I think it was just my love of hockey that really inspired the book.
I don't remember. There's a quotation. I don't remember which writer had told this, that if you don't get a book that you want to read, just write that.
Yeah.
So I think that quote by heart.
Because I think it's important to write something that you're excited about. You don't want to just write something because you think it's going to sell, or I was so excited to write this book because I couldn't find a book about it, so I think that's
I get it.
It was just fun to write, and I think that's what kind of makes it fun to read, is if the writer is having fun telling the story.
Yeah, that's a point which every writer and reader should think, like, write or read a book that you want to read. Yes, I agree to that. So my next question to you would be, how did you manage to come out of your comfort zone and evolve yourself to write in different genres?
I think so I started with the hockey books, and then even though I won the contest, and getting my first book published, I guess, was easy because I won this contest. It followed like several years of rejection after that, so it wasn't easy after that. And I think I just kind of had to find my niche. So so after the hockey books, I started like with mysteries, because that's what I really enjoyed reading the most. And so I think my books were just always inspired by, what I was interested in at that time. So my mystery novels, like 25 years ago today, was inspired by my days working at a newspaper, because it's about a newspaper reporter and obit writer, editorial assistant. Those are all jobs that I had. And then my next mystery novel, Sink or Swim, was inspired by the reality TV show craze. Like Survivor was getting really popular, shows like that, Big Brother. And I put a little bit of my background in it. Like when I was in college, I worked at a health club as a trainer. So my main character, Cassidy, works at a health club, and she's a personal trainer at a gym. So
there's a balance of fiction and reality in your
book. I think they're all fiction, but a lot of times they're based on, I'll put in scenes or like settings that I've been to before.
Contemporary situations, and your life influences your novels.
Right. And then my children's picture book, The Flag Keeper, so picture books isn't like one of my main genres, but at the time I was a mom, and I was reading a lot of picture books to my daughter. And then my husband, he's very like into presidents and patriotic and flags. Like he knows all this flag trivia about flags from around the world. And we got a flagpole in our yard, and because he really wanted one, he wanted to go out every night and bring the flag in and out. And then he would bring my daughter out with him, and I would ask him, well, why don't you just leave it out all the time. Why do you have to bring it in and out? It seems kind of a hassle to me. And he explained to me about the U.S. flag code and flag etiquette and how you're not supposed to leave it out at night unless it's a spotlight. So that inspired my story, The Flag Keeper, because he taught me a lot of things I didn't know. I think a lot of kids know about, the history of the flag and Betsy Ross, but they don't really know that much about flag etiquette. So that inspired that book. And then my romantic comedy books, my Storybook Valley series. I think I was at a point, I still enjoyed mysteries, but I had been reading a lot of romantic comedy and Sophie Kinsella. I really loved her books, the Shopaholic books.
Shopaholic, yes.
And I just felt like writing something funny. I think you just see so much bad news, in the world. And I just wanted to write something humorous. And we were at a fairy tale theme park with our kids, and we had just gone to see Cinderella. And I just got this idea of about setting a romantic comedy series at a theme park, and what if it was a reluctant Cinderella who didn't really want to be Cinderella, and then what if she fell in love with her boss who was her Prince Charming. So, I think it's a lot of the ideas are just inspired by things I'm interested in or what stage I'm in,
Things that you're experiencing in real life that inspired your novels.
Right. Definitely.
That's fair enough. I was actually very curious to know what events in your life would have inspired you to write Story Valley series, because the theme park and all, they're so intriguing. So I was really curious. So any particular park that you had in mind while writing?
I think it was a collection of different theme parks. My husband and I, first of all, we love Disney. We got engaged at Epcot. We've been to Disneyland in California. On our honeymoon, we went to Paris. So of course we had to go to Disneyland Paris. And so I just considered Disney, just happy place. And then we'd like to take our kids to these theme parks in New Hampshire, Storyland and Santa's Village. And those are smaller theme parks, but they're really fun. And I think we were on a trip to Storyland and Santa's Village when I got the idea for the Storybook Valley books. So I knew I wanted it to be kind of a smaller theme park, but so I did a lot of research on, I watched videos of former Disney princesses, and I watched interviews with former Six Flags employees, listened to podcasts of people that work at big amusement parks, different amusement parks throughout the country. So I just kind of made this compilation. I kind of took what I liked about all these different theme parks and made my own. So it was really fun to create that.
All the researches and you use them to create a story.
Yes, in my Storybook Valley books, I mentioned a rides night and different positive reinforcements for the employees, because they want their employees to be really positive and friendly to customers and everything, because people are coming there for for fun, kind of a vacation experience, a fun experience. And I got that idea from listening to some Six Flags videos where when an employee was talking about how they would have rides nights, and you could get different prizes and different things like that. So I just kind of took all of this information and little snippets from the Disney princesses talking about some of the stories, the good and bad stories, the funny stories, and I just kind of put it all together and made my own kind of theme park experience. The
animations were very realistic, specifically the names of the characters like Tiara or Aura. Then they were so realistic. I loved reading about them. So,
yeah, it was fun to write.
I could know that I could actually understand that the writer is a fan of fairy tales. So that's fun to read.
Yeah.
In the Story Valley series, where did you get the idea of creating two diverse families obsessed with fairy tales and animals?
I think I was trying to, so for the first family, the Callahan family, the ones own this theme park, and I was trying to find a way to make it this family really quirky. I was thinking what would make and I had an editor that I was working with also on this idea, and so she brought a lot of ideas. Also, she had actually done an internship at Disney World, so she had seen all these handlers following the characters around and things like that. So it was a lot of brainstorming, and then just kind of from my research, I was like, who would own this theme park? I wanted it to be independently owned. So I just came up with this family where they were just obsessed with fairy tales, and like they named all the kids after fairy tale characters, like there's like Gretel, and on the main character Dylan, his middle name, is Peter after Peter Pan. Yeah. And I did a lot of research into different fairy tales to just kind of trigger different ideas. I wanted to be like funny, and so I gave the grandfather like this quirk, that he's obsessed with garden gnomes, and I was just looking up garden gnomes just to get ideas, and then I found out that it's actually this thing where people like to move garden gnomes around to different places to liberate them. It actually was a real thing. And I was like, oh. So then I really started researching that, and I thought, oh, this is hilarious. So I had him have all these different kinds of garden gnomes throughout the park, and he hides them because he's
and specifically that rose touch that Aura had, like in Sleeping Beauty, like the family obsessed with rose themed birthday parties and all.
Yes, yeah, because of Aurora Rose, because I named her name's Rory, her nickname's Rory, but she's named after Aurora from Sleeping Beauty, and then like some Sleeping Beauty variations like Briar Rose. So yeah, so I got the idea, like, okay, what would this crazy family do that would, and I thought, okay, they just for years all they do is give her rose themed gifts, so then I'm like looking on the internet for every crazy like rose themed gift that she could possibly get. So I was just kind of trying to push myself to find the silliest things and to just kind of go with the flow. Yeah. So I could just kind of like take an idea, like, okay, her family gives her these rose themed things and starting to drive her crazy. She doesn't want all these, her bedroom is like surrounded with like roses, and she's 25 years old now, and she doesn't want to hurt their feelings. So then I just kind of look up what are some things that have roses on them, and we try to come up with ideas. And then for the other family, Thorn family, which I chose that name because of the rose, the rose and the thorn. I
love that thing, because after marriage, she will be named Aura Rose Thorn. Like that just goes so well.
I know. Poor Rory, yeah. I think when I was fooling around with Cinderella, the first book in the series, initially, I didn't necessarily know that I was going to be developing this other family to the extent that I did. At least when I started the first draft, I knew that the grandfather, that he had this, that there was this rival zoo that was owned by this other family, and he was like a big rival of the grandfather. And then I think when I was kind of writing, I was in the final stages of editing it, and I was kind of thinking, like, what's the next book in the series I want to write? I started getting the idea of Rory, who always wants, she's like the perfect princess, perfect daughter. She does what she's expected of her. I thought, what could happen that would push her out of her comfort zone? And I came up with the idea of, like, what if she fell for the son or the grandson of the rival family? So then I started really developing that. And they own like a zoo, so I did a lot of research into zoos to try to make it realistic, and because he worked at the zoo and I wanted it to be believable. So I started kind of going down that rabbit hole, like I did with the theme park. So just learning a lot about different zoos and trying to find. I wanted to make his grandfather kind of like parallel to Rory's grandfather, where one was obsessed with fairy tales and the other one was just like obsessed with the zoo and trying to get the most customers and everything.
And specifically the Romeo Juliet part, like families at war and the grandchildren are being in love and all. That was really good. That was so well done.
Yeah, that was I was trying to make it like dramatic but funny. That's always to have like a believable story that with some drama that the readers want to read, but to make the events around it like really zany and funny, so romantic comedy, entertaining to read.
Which is the next princess you are planning on? Are you planning to continue this series?
Yeah, so I have some different ideas. Like I want to do, I think, a Christmas novella. I'm not quite sure who the main character would be. Like in the first one, it was Dylan and Jane, and then the second one, Sleeping Beauty, it was Dylan's sister Rory. So if I'm envisioning like some of the books, I might like do another book like on Jane, like maybe like her wedding or something like that. Yeah. And then some of the other ones, I made a cast of like different characters that I kind of tried to leave it open so that they could carry their own books. So, the Christmas one, I'm not sure who would be the main character, but I'm thinking about doing a wedding one with Jane, like maybe a Red Riding Hood one, like wolfing around with the Red Riding Hood. And
Yeah, she was obsessed with her character.
Yeah, I think she would be fun too, right? She's much. I think she likes being Red Riding Hood better than me being herself. And then,
she was
Wendy.
Yeah, Wendy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there's the cousin Wendy, who's named after Wendy from Peter Pan. I'm thinking about one like flying around with Peter Pan. Yeah, so I'm trying to come up with these titles and then figure who could go with them. So I deliberately made a bunch of secondary characters that could, that had their own little stories.
It will be fun to see them grow and have their own stories. Like, I'm looking forward to that series.
Yeah, it was fun. Like in Sleeping Beauty, in Fooling Around with Cinderella, it was about Jane and Dylan, Dylan's the grandson, of the, and he kind of runs the theme park. So it was nice. I developed their romance in the first one. And then the second book, his sister Rory took center stage, but it was really fun having Dylan and Jane just kind of as supporting characters in the background and showing another side of Dylan, where as a brother, like where Rory's, talking to him and arguing with him and everything. So it's nice just showing this whole other side. And then there's another brother that they have who hasn't been in the book so far, but I'm thinking about putting him in one of them, and I'm not sure who he'd wind up with, but I'm thinking about maybe the Red Riding Hood or something like that.
It's really fun to see this series continue and grow in its own world. Like, that's fun. And the best part about this series is you can read it as a series and a standalone. So that's really fun to read.
Thanks.
So my next question to you is, like, you are a very experienced writer. So how do you deal with writer's block? Like, you must have come across writer's block.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Different ways. Like sometimes it's just like a couple of days, like it's like I'd say like a less serious case of writer's block where it's just, you need to maybe take a day off or like go make sure like get out of my head a bit, just kind of take a walk, just go out with a friend, just kind of read for fun, just kind of think about something else so I'm not pushing so hard to be creative. And then a lot of times it'll just come to me, or I'll brainstorm with someone like my husband. A lot of times I'll talk to him about something I'm stuck on, or a friend. Sometimes just talking about it helps me get unstuck. And then there've been times where life gets in the way and you have writer's block. So that happened to me when I was writing Fooling Around with Cinderella, when my daughter was in kindergarten. She was 6 years old and she got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And that was like a huge life-changing thing. And I just really, for about a year, I couldn't, even though I wanted to escape into my Storybook Valley, I just couldn't, because it was so much to learn, and I was constantly just focusing on that and getting her like the right doctors and getting her on the right treatment and technology and just learning as much as I could. So I was just always filling every moment I was filling my brain with like listening to podcasts about diabetes, spending time in Facebook groups. So that was sort of a long drought where I just didn't even have the desire to write. But then, and I've heard other authors talking about this also, like if they're taking care of like a parent that, as a caregiver, sometimes they just feel like they can't write. So I think, you just got to do what you have to do and then try to find a way to get it back into your life. So I think once she kind of got settled and, she was on an insulin pump and I felt like she was doing well, I felt like the next step was, okay, we have to have like a normal life, and part of a normal life for us is like me writing books and being a writer. So then I was just kind of able to ease myself back into it. And it was hard after like taking basically a year off from not doing much with the book. So I just reread it. I find research kind of gets me excited. So I started doing some more research. And then at that point, I found like an editor because I wanted to get some feedback on those chapters, because romantic comedy and chick lit was a totally new genre for me. So I thought that might help get the creative juices flowing. And it did ease back into it. If you have something like that, kind of start slowly, and then just if you can talk about it with someone, that can get you excited. If you can do a little bit of research, that can get you excited. You just got to get that excitement and passion back, and then force yourself to just sit down and write. And then, then eventually the flow started again. And so I think, you just have to overcome that hurdle and just kind of sit down and do it. And then eventually, you'll get back into that flow again. And I'm an editor myself. I'm a freelance editor. So I've seen a lot of mistakes that authors make. So I think if you can learn as much as you can about writing and editing from the beginning, that will save you a lot of time. Like, if you've never read a book about writing a book, or you've never taken a class about writing a book, and you just sit down and try to write a book, you might get overwhelmed, or you might find that when you finish it, you're going to have to go back and do a lot of rewriting. So it's good to kind of educate yourself about the process, like 3-act structure, what goes in the beginning, what goes in the middle, and plot points and things like that at the end, and character development, make sure your character
story
well-rounded. Like study authors that you like to figure out what you should be writing, like what do you like to read and what authors do you gravitate toward, and just kind of analyze their styles,
your comfort zones.
Like what do you like about their books, or and I think every writer has strengths and weaknesses. Like for some writers, it's easier for them to write like dialogue than it is to get in their character's head, or to write setting, or so you just kind of find what your strengths are and then find what your weaknesses are and try to learn how to develop those. But it's just a process. The most important thing is to get it down on paper, but it's just learn. It is a learning curve, and you should expect it's a learning curve. Nobody just sits down and writes their first draft and that's it, it's ready to publish. So just be aware of that and have a thick skin, for when you give it out for feedback. It's very nerve-wracking to send it to an editor, or to even have your family read it or your friends read it. Just remind yourself.
How many drafts do you make before actually giving it to a publisher or allowing anyone else to read the book?
For me, I write probably 4 or 5 drafts before I let anybody else read it. And sometimes I'll have critique partners. Over the years I've had different things where I've been in little critique groups, and I'll send chapters at a time and we go back and forth, or I've had critique partners where I would show them the book before I showed my family, because I wanted it to be as strong as possible. Before it's almost easier to show it to somebody you don't know that well, as opposed to someone needs you, because you want it to be, I think it's easier to take feedback from someone like that.
Usually the one who will support you, it's perfect, it's very nice,
right? And you just that's great, but
you want outside opinion.
And as an editor, I think it depends a lot in your writing skill. My skills evolved over the years to doing a rewrite now, or writing a first draft now. It's usually a lot tighter than it was when I was beginning. So it takes me less drafts now than it used to. And when I see beginners submit their books to me, it just depends on their level. So there's some beginners who know nothing about writing. This is their totally first book. They've never written before this. They haven't done a lot of research into how to write a book. They just want to get the story down. And they might have trouble with grammar and punctuation and everything. So for someone like that, it could take 8 drafts, really working, getting feedback from somebody, going back and forth, to really get it to a strong enough level where you could, maybe consider publishing. And then for somebody that's, kind of experienced and they've been through rewrites, it might take them a couple of drafts, a few drafts before they send it to the editor. It might be a couple of times going back and forth. Some authors also need a copy editor or a proofreader, if they have trouble with grammar and punctuation. So it's a lot of drafts from the very first beginning to publication or sending it out. But I think the more experience you have, the faster that process is, because you kind of learn to think like an editor as you're doing your first rewrite.
The writing.
Yeah.
So basically, as the more you write, the number of drafts reduce.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, fair enough. So what was your motivation behind starting an online writing and editing course?
So I had been doing freelance editing for about 6 years, and I was finding that most beginner writers and some intermediate writers were hiring me too early. And I've heard the same thing from other developmental editors, where if you pay for an editor too early, it's almost like we can't really do that much editing. It's more like we're doing teaching you the craft of writing. And editing is expensive. It can cost several $100s to over $1,000 for one round of developmental editing. And as I was saying, some authors need might ideally need like 8 rounds going back and forth with an editor, and at hundreds of dollars per round, that's not realistic. I mean, most people can't afford that, or or writing is sort of a side thing or a dream, but they can't. There's only so much money they can invest in it. I was seeing all these writers making the same kinds of mistakes, because every writer literally makes the same categories of mistakes. So that's why I created the course, so that I could give an overview of, okay, these are all the mistakes I see when people submit their books to me. I see it in book after book. So this is what you need to focus on before you hire an editor, so that you're not spending hundreds of dollars, on all these early rounds of editing. So it's just kind of giving them an overview of all the things that they should be evaluating in their own book, and it gives them like checklists, things like that, of things that they should evaluate in their own book. Yeah, so it's just basically training them to see their, now that they've got a draft, or as they're working in the draft, teaching them to see it through an editor's eyes. These are all the things, you could pay me $750 to tell you all this, but I think you should take the class, and for a lot cheaper, and you can find these same things yourself, and then hire an editor for your strongest draft, and you'll get the most value for your money. If your draft is strong enough, strong or over past a certain beginner point, then we can do a lot more editing on it, rather than just teaching you like about show don't tell, or how to write more actively, and how to give your characters an arc, that kind of thing. So it's just trying to get that teaching stuff out of the way, so that we can actually edit,
Exactly. So that the writer does the writing part well.
Right, because there's only so much you can, if I write an editorial letter, like it might be about, my editorial letters are long, and I think it's pretty standard what another editor would do too, but like my editorial letters are maybe about 8 pages, single space, so there's a lot in there. And I also make like notations on the manuscript using track changes, and I'll make comments and some line edits and everything. But that's just really overwhelming, I think, for an author. So
like,
I think
the whole process will be for the writer to rewrite the whole thing, because
right.
if the editor is saying that you're not much into the head of the character, it means like the whole process of writing that novel was like just went wrong.
Right, because like if you didn't get into your character's head like enough, or sometimes I'll read a scene and it's not even clear whose head we're supposed to be in. There's just no clear viewpoint character, or they might hop into different characters' head. We might be on like the main character's head in like chapter 1, and then we start going to all these other people's heads, and we don't get back to the main character till like chapter 6. So there's just so many different things, and sometimes like they might get into the character's head a little bit, but not enough for the reader to really understand or relate to the character. It's still not really clear why they're acting the way they are, and so the reader's just having trouble identifying with that character or warming up to the character, because it's not, we don't know them well enough. And if you do that like on every page of the book, then you're basically going to have to rewrite every page of the book to strengthen that point of view. And then there's just so many other things, like the showing, not telling, and making sure you have enough conflict in the book and tension. So there's just so many different things, and it can be really overwhelming to like have an editor just give you this letter and be like, okay, these are all the things you did wrong. Now go and, now go and fix them. And it's like, okay, what do I,
Basically rewriting the whole thing, because if the narration technique and the things which the writer has been thinking is wrong, then you have to just rewrite the whole thing. And that's a lot of procedure you have to do.
Right.
And not only just writing the whole thing, the writer has to learn the way to write also.
Exactly.
If that makes sense.
Because editing, when a book's ready for editing, editing is different than teaching, like, okay, telling them about point of view. Like your whole manuscript is lacking point of view. That's more like a teaching. A lot of your descriptions are very passive. You really have to work on every page of your book to make your writing as active and vivid as possible. That's like a lot of teaching. Whereas editing is where you have this manuscript that, it's certainly not perfect, but there is point of view in it. Maybe there might be some pages where we could get more into the character's head, or it might be some pages where it's still a little unclear. So the editor would point those things out, or, there might be some dialogue that's kind of
too long,
cut it down, or maybe like,
scene that needs to be chopped out of the book.
Right, that kind of thing. Or there might, maybe a character's motivation isn't clear, editing is more about fine tuning all these different areas, whereas teaching is basically telling them how they should write this book, to make it more fit into these conventional guidelines. So
yes, I got your point, and it's really acceptable because new writers have to learn like exactly like how one should write. So
right.
what do you prefer more, editing, writing, or teaching?
I think I like them all. Writing is just sort of a creative outlet, and it's fun for me, and it's almost like doing like a puzzle, like putting these different pieces together into writing a story. And then the editing and teaching, the editing, it can be fun to play in somebody else's world, and I enjoy line editing where that's where a story is more, it's pretty well developed, and it's just it's like more of a matter of just really going paragraph by paragraph, making it as strong as possible. So that's fun for me to be able to do some line editing and cutting sentences, or improve the flow. I just like tinkering with sentences. I'm not like the English teacher that's loves correcting grammar and things like that. I mean, I'll do it to some degree if but for me, I like the tinkering with the sentences and just making them flow better and finding different words. And, it's fun for me, like when the client will say, oh, I just love, I love the line edits you made. It just flows so much better. And then the teaching, I really enjoy teaching. For a lot of years, I was a newspaper reporter, and I specialized in health writing. I still do some health writing now and then. And I really like educating people about different topics. And I think, I like writing articles, maybe not as much as I like writing a novel, but I do really like writing articles and just getting information out there to people. So I think teaching writers was sort of like a perfect fit for me, because I get to, it satisfies that need of helping people with something and teaching them something new. But I've been there, like where I was like a beginner and had so much to learn, and it was overwhelming.
Teaching always teaches you so much, like points which you might not have learned as a student, you will learn as a teacher.
Right, because I had done critiques over the years as an author, just critiquing other people's works. But when you sit down and you're like really editing, going in depth and working on several people's manuscripts in all different genres and all different, rather than just a few critique partners, it kind of opens your eyes to, seeing different things
might happen while writing.
And it's kind of fun learning about different genres. If there's a genre I'm not as familiar with, and I'll kind of go out and read some authors by to kind of, so I can help with the authors in that particular genre more. So it's been like a good growth experience for me, like just kind of learning about different writing styles, and so it's fun. Yeah,
that's really fun. So you have been reading and writing and teaching. So who has been your role model or your inspiration?
I think my parents really, because they're the ones that instilled like a love of reading from me at a young age. I remember my mom always taking me to the library and taking me, we'd walk down there and I'd go out to lunch, and I'd go down into the children's room, and I remember they had like these Disney murals on the walls, and it was just such a fun place for me, and I would just spend, a lot of time there, and she would take me to bookstores, and I remember there were some books I wanted to save up to buy, and so they were like, well, why don't you wash dishes to get allowance to earn the money to buy the books. So they always just kind of instilled this love of reading in me, and I think that sort of has what's made me who I am. I even met my husband through my writing, because we were both writing for a newspaper. So so I'm grateful to them for setting me down the right path.
A mother who reads makes a daughter who reads. And
right.
How you are dealing with this pandemic situation due to COVID-19? Like, have you inculcated any habit to improve yourself while staying at home?
Yeah, definitely. It's been really hard for us. Like, we've just been staying home and really haven't been going out too much. It's been hard, like on my kids, like we've had, when friends come over, they, I make them sit like 8 feet apart outside, kind of rather have people come here than there, because I know that we're following the social distancing, because it's hard with so many people who aren't, and you don't know what the families are doing. So it's been very stressful for me. causing a lot of anxiety, like some anger. So I kind of realized after like the first couple months, I was just getting so upset that I had to, that wasn't healthy for me. So I kind of, now I'm looking at it as a time to try to improve myself and to grow my business and grow my writing. So I've been reading a lot of books about positive thinking and manifesting. I've been doing meditation, trying to do that every day. Some journaling, taking walks, that kind of thing. And just work. I've been working on kind of coming up with thinking about what I want to write next and focusing on my Shortcuts for Writers business. I've been, I created like an affiliate program for my courses. So I've been reaching out to a lot of possible affiliates and doing a lot of networking. I'm working on developing ideas for like the next classes I want to do.
Are you a workaholic?
Yeah.
Like very.
I used to be very like type A personality, and I used to work like late at night. I remember when we first got married, like every minute that like my husband was, occupied watching sports or something like that, or I would be writing or working every single minute, and I didn't give myself breaks very often. And I think that wasn't healthy for me to be like such a workaholic. Even when my kids were little, I would be constantly like writing really late, and and it's good, I think, to be, determined and to get things done. But I learned over the years that I'm much more productive and much more pleasant to be around if I give myself breaks. I have like a planner where I plan what I'd like to get done for that week or that month. I'm very goal oriented. These are things I want to get done, or if I don't finish them, I'll carry them over to the next month. But I kind of know what my priority projects are and my priority tasks for like the week and the month and even the quarter. But I also make sure now that I have to take time to meditate several times a week. I have to take time to take walks or ride my stationary bike. Or I'm trying to get myself back into doing yoga because I love yoga, but it just seems like the day has been getting away from me. There's never time to do it. But I think that's something would be really good for me to also. I tend to get a lot of achy neck and everything from being on the computer. So, I've been reading a lot for pleasure. So I think it's important to, allow yourself time to do that also, because I think for a writer too, it makes you more creative. And if you just push too hard, because if you push too hard, sometimes it's just you can't think clearly, and you're slowed down anyway. So I find that I get more done in the long run if I let myself take some time.
Tip for our viewers will be a workaholic, but still give yourself a break once in a while.
Yeah,
a break.
Right, definitely.
So what are the books you have been reading? Like any suggestions you would like to, book recommendations you would like to give our audience?
I've been reading, like on the nonfiction side, I've been reading a book called Chillpreneur, which is kind of a good book for women entrepreneurs, just about growing your business and like kind of manifesting positive things for your business. And then I've been reading on the fiction side, Jodi Picoult. I've been reading a lot of her books. She writes like Jodi Picoult. She reads like women's fiction. And then I've just been trying to think of some books offhand I've read lately, but I've been kind of through my library, I've been ordering ebooks. So I've been kind of reading a lot of kind of bestsellers, New York Times bestsellers that I missed that I hadn't read. So just kind of catching up on those in different genres. I've been reading some mysteries and suspense novels. So it's been interesting, kind of, because I think because I'm an editor, there was like a period where I was doing a lot of editing, and then I didn't want to read for my time off because I just needed a break from like my eyes, and so I feel like I've kind of been more balanced lately, and it's been fun having time to just read all these different things. So sometimes I'll just browse through the library app on my phone and just kind of read what the librarians recommend, or things, and I'll put myself on the list for them. So it's fun, like when they come.
Yeah, I have also joined many book clubs and all that during this time of pandemic, because I usually prefer contemporary or mythological fictions. I'm not a very big non-fiction fan, but I have been reading a lot of non-fictions, and then mystery thriller. Last night I finished reading The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn. Have you heard it?
Oh, I read. She wrote Gone Girl. I read Gone Girl.
I have not read Gone Girl till now because I'm not the person who likes to read a lot of actually I've not discovered a lot of mystery thrillers because that's not my comfort zone. So So to try out new books, I started up with The Grown Up by her. So
I'll have to check that out. I've read the author of the Devil Wears Prada, Lauren. I think it's Lauren Weisberger. I just read a couple books of hers recently, and I found that it's always fun, like, to discover a book from an author you haven't read in a while, to kind of catch up on what they've done. And she had one that I forget the name of it, but it was about the other assistant in The Devil Wears Prada. You know, the one. Was it Emily? I think her name. I'm not sure, but it was about her, and it was about her, like, sort of like years later, you know, when she's married and everything. So it was kind of fun reading that.
What are your plans for your next book?
So I think it might be the Christmas one, the Christmas Storybook Valley one, like a Christmas in July kind of thing at the park. So that would be fun to research. You know, some different ideas, like Christmas theme parks, get some ideas, and then put it into this Christmas in July thing. I'm not sure who the main character would be yet. I'm also thinking about writing a third book of my hockey series. So I'd written the first one, Face Off. That was the one I got published as a teenager. And then the sequel, I got rejected at that time. And then I couldn't find another publisher to publish it. Like, there was a lot of turnover at the publishing company, and it was all different editors. So I just couldn't find a home for that book, and it was in my drawer for like 25 years. So I took it out a couple years ago, and I totally rewrote it. Like, you know, I always say I'm my own worst editing client, because that was like, basically, I took this book, and it basically was like almost like someone else had written it, and I rewrote like literally every word, and totally. But it was really fun experience. You know, revisiting these characters I created when I was a teenager. And both books do really well. Like, you know, they still sell copies every day. And so I think I've been thinking about maybe having a third book in that series. So that would be fun to do also. I like revisiting them. I'm finding that I really like writing these series, because my mystery novels were standalones. It's fun, like, just revisiting, like even the Storybook Valley books, like revisiting.
So which genre do you prefer the most? Like your favorite genre to write?
Romantic comedy, the chick lit. And it's funny, because I never would have thought that I'd be writing that. I mean, I thought I was going to be writing mysteries, you know, but I just found, like, you know, as I got older, I mean, I still like reading them in suspense novels, but I think I prefer reading romantic comedies now, something lighter. And I just prefer, especially with all this going on now too, I want to write around, like, all the negativity
comedies and all. They give you like a warm hug. It feels like a warm hug.
Exactly. It's like, I don't feel like writing about murder. I just don't want to write dead bodies anymore. I want to write about Red Riding Hood, finding her true love.
Now we come to the segment where I request our guest of honor to read an extract from her book. Stacy, can you read us your favorite extract?
Yeah, I got one from chapter 2 of Prancing Around with Sleeping Beauty. And I picked this excerpt because it just gives a flavor of the theme park. It helps readers, I think, just get to know a little bit about this world I created. So, thank goodness for merry-go-rounds and sentimental roommates. Rory wrapped her hands around the brass pole as her favorite horse, an ebony outside jumper with a flowing mane, large teeth, and laid-back ears, coasted up and down in the carousel her grandparents bought 6 decades ago for their brand-new park. Rows of intricately carved wooden horses and 2 Roman chariots revolved around mirrored panels and terror paintings. Glowing white lights studded the canopy, and cheerful band organ music piped through the air. When Tiara and Crystal heard she was visiting her brother at Storybook Valley, they convinced her to meet at the merry-go-round first. As kids, they always rode the carousel on each other's birthdays. Since Tiara worked at the park as food services director and Crystal as wardrobe supervisor and Little Red Riding Hood, these two still went on rides, but it had been a long time for Rory. A few rows ahead, her cousin Tiara sat atop the fanciest steed. Gleaming jewels, brilliant florals, and a magenta saddle adorned the creamy white horse, flamboyant like its rider. Tiara's sparkly headband and necklace winked in the distance, and a smattering of pink glitter dusted her blonde spirals. Glancing over her shoulder, Rory saw Red Riding Hood parked between 2 small girls on the elegant maroon chariot. Each rotation, Crystal, aka Little Red waved to the kids awaiting the next ride. Crystal maintained the character job even after her promotion to a management position. Each day she guided the wardrobe staff dressed in her knee-length cape, lace-up bodice, and checkered skirt. At least Crystal dressed in regular clothes during the off-season when she worked in the office doing general administrative work. Her suggestion for Costume Friday had been vetoed. Rory figured playing a character distanced Crystal from her troubled family life, giving her his safety zone. Escape from the real world into an enchanted forest geared toward vacationing families attracted many employees to Storybook Valley.
Wow. It was so good, your narration. It's
so thanks. Yeah, I thought that excerpt just kind of showed how, for a lot of even the employees working there, it's almost like an escape being for the day. They get to dress up as different characters and kind of be someone else for the day. So.
Specifically Crystal, I am really curious for her story to grow. It's my personal request. I want to see her story grow.
Yeah, I think she's the ones at the top of the list. I see her. I want to know her grandmother and the Little Red Riding Hood and who's the wolf. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a specific mention that Krista, that being Red Riding Hood actually helps her to escape the fox of her life. So, yeah, right. I'm curious to know her story.
Oh, that's good. That spurs me on.
So, can you please tell our viewers on which platforms your books are available?
They're all on Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com. They're all available as ebooks, so different ebook retailers like Kobo. Most of them are available on paperback and Audible. Most of them are, I think the only one that doesn't have an Audible copy is Prancing Around with Sleeping Beauty at this point, but all the others have audiobook editions as well. So you can go to my website, stacyjuba.com, and that has lists, has all my book blurbs and links to all the retailers.
Okay. Thank you so much, Stacy, for giving us your precious time. Thank you so much to our audience. Thank you, Stacy. All the best for your books and upcoming ventures.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. It was fun.
Thank you so much. So it's a wrap for today's video, guys. Hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed having this discussion with Stacy. Thank you, Stacy, once again. Bye-bye.
Bye.